Hey guys, Youngblood with you, and we're moving from the shady system of Nyx and heading to what kind of has this weird tagline of the smallest star system with the biggest impact on galactic affairs, which is Bremen. Bremen is a relatively small system, but with 4 planets here, it's not as small as you might expect given the tagline. Either way, the system that's orbiting this K-type dwarf star has really played its part in the history of the Empire. Bremen was initially discovered in the mid-2400s by a famous explorer named Bao Yun, and he found all 4 of the planets and basically labeled the system as unremarkable, especially referring to the very thin green band with only 1 planet labeled as a terraforming candidate. Not seeing much value in this system, he ended up selling his rights to the United Nations of Earth, and the UNE quickly moved into this system to continue the human expansion. Bao Yun had, a very apt description of Bremen 1, and that was a small, dead rock. And to this point, I like it, but it pretty much seems to sum up the majority of the first-in-orbit planets that we've discussed so far. Not many resources, so it's not really worth stopping by. However, it's become kind of an interesting place for explorers to kind of tip their wings to the planet in honor of Bao Yun in hopes of good luck and safe travels before entering the void on their explorations. For those of you interested in exploration, it probably would make let's put it this way. It probably is not going to make a huge difference, but it could be a fun little thing to do to get into the character of an explorer. Bremen 2 is also known as Retief, and it's where all the action has taken place in the system. Now, it was only terraformable candidate in the system, and thus it was quickly terraformed by the UNE, and in only 20 years, it was ready for the first batch of settlers to move in. Now, most people who left Earth or Terra for different systems were really looking to strike it rich from the resources, kind of like the people in the gold rush back in America. The settlers moving to Bremen seemed to be looking for quiet and stability. And around this time, humans were in the midst of the Second Tevarin War. Now, before we get too far into this, I want to talk about the Tevarin because I think most of you are probably familiar with the Vandal, the Xi'an, and the Banu, but the Tevarin were actually the 3rd alien species that we made contact with. Now, the Tevarin are less technologically advanced than we are, which makes sense just because that's kind of the way the universe could potentially work, but it is kind of funny for us to think about that with aliens. But we sort of kind of butted heads, immediately because both species are hard-headed, passionate, and really committed to expanding their empires. The Tevarin were really focused, and they kind of were considered master strategists, and were extremely committed to their cause, resulting in long-term and deadly battles between the human and the Tevarin. We haven't seen much at this point regarding the race, primarily because after the Second War, the race was essentially broken. Now, what we have heard a bit about is the Tevarin boarding craft, but that's not what this video is about. During the war, though, which reached to almost every sector of human-populated space, there was this drastic need for supplies. And while other systems were focused on producing things like ships and components and weapons and technology, Bremen 2 jumped in and did their part for the war machine by producing food from their productive farmlands. Now, it may seem basic, but food is a very basic need that can make a huge difference in a war. It's part of the supply lines. And those people that came here, because it was the safe choice, were now people becoming absurdly wealthy as the Empire had to purchase what they needed. And one of those farmers, Arcturus Carner, actually became the acting governor of the planet. And it wasn't just the farmers who benefited. Packagers and shippers saw a huge boom, and this planet and system became this total economic powerhouse, which led to a huge rush of people moving in to purchase farmland, and the population ended up skyrocketing. After the war, though, the population began to drop off, and after the Second Tevarin War, we had the United Nations of Earth change into the United Earth Empire, which was led by Ivar Messer. And after his work in the war, he was kind of promoted into that imperator role. Messer was a ruthless, kind of powerful guy, and he really kept trying to set himself up to get more power, like a lot of people in power do. And eventually, people became tired of it, and a revolution began. Bremen 2 was almost relegated to nothingness, but its reputation as a farm planet made it just unassuming enough for rebellious minds to find a home here. Bremen 2 became the hub of the revolution, and people who had fled into Xi'an space trying to escape the Messer regime were now being kind of smuggled back into Bremen to kind of craft their conspiracy and create their plans to overthrow Messer. So this little system to this point has been the savior of the Empire through providing food, then was the hub of a critical revolution, and is now the home of Consolidated Outlands, the first outer system to produce a fully functioning starship manufacturer. Consolidated Outlands is actually run by Silas Karner, the descendant to the guy that we talked about before, who was the acting governor of this planet. So not to move from all of that into a kind of a letdown, but let's go ahead and hit the last 2 planets here as well. Bremen 3 is outside of the green band and is a coreless world. Now there were minerals here at one point, but they were all stripped out of the planet during the terraforming of 2 and just getting everything operational here in the system. There isn't a real good reason to come here, at least that we know of. Bremen 4 is a massive ice giant and has been dubbed the guardian planet of the system because it's done a really good job of clearing out comets and asteroids that would have threatened the actually populated areas of the system. Bremen 4 is said to be a really bad refueling point based on the dangerous terrain. However, there is often to be found a starfarer or caterpillar carcass in the orbit who tried and ended up paying the ultimate price. So for those of you interested in doing some salvage or reclaiming work, head out to Bremen 4. Now Bremen has 4 connections to other systems right now, leading to Tenga, Nix, Callus, and Vega. So who's going to find success in Bremen? Well, I already mentioned those of you that were interested in salvage, but with not much else in regards to debris fields and asteroid belts, and I just don't imagine there being a whole lot of conflict in the system, there may be limited success in actually finding reclamation sites. I think the best bet is for those that are interested in shipping. Bremen, while now being more focused on the ship production industry, still should have a decent amount of exports in the realm of food. And taking food from Bremen to Vega, only 1 jump away, should yield some decent profits. And actually, Vega is known to be on the border with the Vanduul, and is pretty far out in regards to UEE systems. So with that in mind, they may have a higher need for imports. Bremen could also be a relatively quiet system for those of you that are interested in combat, but you need a place to call home that's not in combat. You're not too far from the Vanduul line through Vega, and you're not far from the pirates in Nix. You have some good options, and this could be a relatively calm place to call home. So that's the Bremen system. Hopefully you guys got something good out of it. That's going to be it for this video, so stay tuned for more Starmap videos and other just content I'm going to be having coming out soon. Have yourselves a wonderful weekend, and take care.